So hello again, and welcome to the Small Business Forum. This is a program of the University of Arkansas Small Business Technology and Development Center, and we are so pleased to be able to bring you these programs and help support small businesses. We will be hosting this forum, the Small Business Forum, on the last Wednesday of each month at 12, and the topics will be based on your feedback, so we would love to hear from you. Please be advised that we will be recording the panel for ASB TDC education purposes, but as a registrant and attendee of this program, you will be emailed a survey, and you can access a copy of the recording at our website. We love to continuing staying in touch with you and connected and provide support after today. So please send your email address to Julie Preddy in the chat, and we will make sure that we send you notes or links or any other useful information that we come across today in the forum. I'm Amy Robinson. I'm a specialty consultant with ASB TDC. And if you don't know about the ASB TDC, it is a one-stop shop for startups and existing small businesses. We are associated with the University of Arkansas and affiliated with the SBA and the statewide ASB TDC, as well as a national network of more than 1,000 small business centers. And locally, we offer complimentary one-on-one consulting that includes business planning, market analysis and strategy, financial modeling, and more. We also offer programs like this one covering relevant topics for you. And if you're not already a client, we definitely encourage you to join us and at sbtdc.uark.edu, and I will be posting information and ways for you to get in touch with us in the chat today. So I'm going to introduce our panel in just a moment. We will be talking about hiring and keeping good people, a very hot topic for small businesses right now. But first, we would love to get to know all of you and your business. So if you would post in the chat, what company you're with, why you're here today, that'll help us get to know one another and give our guests some context so that we can dive directly into a meaningful and informative conversation. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, today we're talking about hiring and keeping good people. We have, I'm just going to do a quick go round of hellos. We have with us today Chris Case. She's an ASB TDC specialty consultant, and her specialty is leadership and communication. We have Allyson Malone. Hello, Allyson. Also a specialty consultant with ASB TDC in human resources. A couple of our clients and ones to speak to today are Sheila Posey. She is the owner of On Point Solutions. And what else did we say, Sheila? Boss lady, top boss lady. When you're an entrepreneur, you get to come up with your own titles. So we're going for that today. And then we have the famous or infamous, not sure, on different days, Hannah Withers. Hannah is the owner of Leverett Lounge and Maxine's Tap Room. And so first of all, I just want to thank all of you for being here as busy entrepreneurs and busy ASB TDC consultants. You all have a lot on your plate. But this really has been coming up in a lot of our conversations with our clients, as well as one-on-one with businesses. And so I'm going to reiterate to everyone that this is a conversation. So if you're joining us as part of the forum, we really would love to hear from you. So feel free to engage as we're going along. So I'm just going to kind of kick us off and just ask all of you to really think about and tell us about, maybe tell us a little bit about your company. But what I'd love to hear is one of the primary things that you've noticed has changed in the past year in hiring and keeping good people. Obviously, as consultants, you're going to be talking about your clients. As business owners, we'd really love to hear from what it is that you're seeing and what you've noticed in the past year. Sheila, I'm going to ask if you'll just kind of kick us off and tell us a little bit about On Point Solutions and what you've seen change.
Well, thank you, Amy, and thank you, everybody, for having me here. I'm excited. And so On Point Solutions, we are celebrating 5 years in June this year of being in operation. So that's a big milestone. Our business, so we do management consulting, specifically for IT consulting, nonprofits, manufacturing industry. So those are our clients. And the services we offer, so management consulting and change management. So helping employees transition through business process and IT changes, any systems that are in place, any process redesigns. Of course, there's a lot of change going on. And so we stay fairly busy. Another service, a big part of our company, we offer interpreting and translation services in 11 languages for our clients. And so we have an in-house team that's able to translate written material. We offer interpreting services over the phone, video. And so we're really branching out in that area. So that's exciting. New field, I will say that's a new service that we offer, but I'm learning a lot. And so as far as change, wow, there's been a lot. I think the big thing as I thought about this is the way that work gets done, mainly the virtual, the remote work environment that we're all dealing with, even today as we talk and have this conversation. And it's not, the added component of that is technology and people learning new tools and how to really leverage the technology that they have in place. Learning the proper etiquette when using technology as I work with clients and having to train on some of that. And so I see that's been the big change. And so for my company and how one thing we've adapted in several different ways, but really taking the time to put in a really robust virtual onboarding program so that the paperwork, right, we're not in person. And so with employees, I have the I-9, I have to verify employment. With subcontractors, lots of paperwork to complete, non-disclosures, just project information. And so we have taken the time to put in a pretty robust onboarding virtual program where we're able to onboard our employees and our subcontractors fairly quickly, leveraging electronic tools so that we don't have as much back and forth with paperwork, in line, right, and guidelines and compliance with the laws and what they require us to do. But that's been the big shift that we've made as far as to support the hiring and the projects.
That's amazing. Well, change management, what a great industry to be in right now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So, Chris, from a consulting perspective, what are some of the challenges and changes that the clients that you have been working with are seeing when it comes to hiring and keeping people?
Well, I think we've seen a lot of different shifts, but so I've been in business since 1993 with case training. And then just in the last year, one of our consulting jobs has been with ASB TDC. So I've kind of seen a shift since 1993 all the way through. And as we know, people are the biggest part of our success. And people are what's the most impacted right now. The emotional part of it, the behavior, just everything about the people part. So I think the biggest thing I've seen is, how do we hire people? How do we lead them? How do we motivate them and retain them? And we need to focus more on the people, by being present, observing, communicating, making sure we touch base with them. Because people will be honest with you. And Amy, as you know, our clients are very honest with us when they need anything at all. And so you've got to kind of open up that line of trust and communication, but just always checking in with people, I think, is something that we didn't used to do, or we didn't take advantage of, that we need to really capitalize on right now.
I completely agree. And I think that is a great segue into introducing Hannah. Check on your people, right? I think that if that's not a bumper sticker, Hannah, I know that you've posted that, and just really, you are in an industry that has been hit hardest the past year. And now as we're coming out of it, we're really still in it, but let's be honest, as we're kind of seeing things shift again, one of the things that restaurants are challenged with is getting people. And so tell us a little bit about the changes through the pandemic, and then just really kind of as things are opening up back again, I'm doing a lot of quotation marks on that one. What changes, what is the industry seeing? And you have the floor for as long as you need, because I think that this is a really big industry that's really seen a lot.
Yeah, I think I'm just realizing that you want me to talk about how to hire and keep good people, and I thought I was coming to learn. I'm just kidding. I'm going to make up some things really quick. Our industry is is really different. I mean, we're one of the few that was sort of deemed essential enough for tax dollars and to get people off of unemployment and get them back to work. But also what we do, the hospitality industry is so experience-based that nothing we do, very little of what we do translates to virtual. I mean, restaurants can absolutely do a little bit of to-go. We got a little creative with some cocktail kits this summer that we weren't allowed to sell through our business, but we had a friend at a liquor store who allowed us to do that through his permit. But we really, everything has changed for our industry. I mean, the way that we look at hospitality, the way that we are hospitable in a world where we have a whole lot of new mandates and ways of doing things and rules to enforce has changed how hospitable we are. So I think I read last week that 25% of our hospitality industry has left our industry, which is sort of, those are the extra people who are sort of moving around and looking to maybe change their careers or within hospitality or work in a different style of hospitality. And those people right now, currently, now that we're all sort of talking about opening back up to a degree or relaxing some of our own restrictions that we've had for the last year, I think we are finding, I'm hearing crickets chirping. We've never, Maxine's is a very small staff. It's a really busy, high volume place. And so is Leverett Lounge. We have about, pre-COVID, we had about 24 employees between both places. And now we have 12 between both places. We have never really had to publicly ask to hire. We usually have a stack of resumes of people that want to work at our places and that ask if they can just start doing dishes so that they can work in the kitchen and work their way up. And those people, the extra people just aren't there. We've tried Facebook ads. We've tried public signs on our doors. We've actually started closing an extra day at Leverett just because the staff that we have, and including us, we're all so burnt out that we are pulling our hours down to operate a little bit. And I think, you know, the logistic part of working with a smaller group of people or working with a smaller staff and have a smaller group of prospective hires is one thing. But I think what really concerns me about it is that we have a real sort of mentor system in our industry where the lifers, which would maybe be a 20+ year person that's been in hospitality, you know, they're the ones that take people under their wings and teach the young ones how our etiquette works and how our system works. And I was invited, I had a, you know, we've all been on many emotional roller coaster ups and downs all year for lots of various reasons. But I remember a big moment for me when someone who is a lifetime bartender in New Orleans, who's been in the industry for 40 years, and she invited me to a Facebook group called Industry Expats. And it was just full of people from all over the country who were now moving on to their photography dreams or had found their inner real estate agent. And they were using this time in COVID to slow down and think about what they really wanted. And what they really wanted was to jump ship out of our industry. And that was really devastating for me to be invited to that and see so many people that I knew that just kind of said, we're done. And this is all I've done since I was, you know, in high school. And I'm now in my 40s deciding that I'm going to this is my opportunity to move to Mexico City and try flamenco dancing or whatever it is that they're doing. And so we're at a real crazy point right now where we are all trying to get back to a point where we can start financially recovering from the last year, but we literally just don't have enough bodies to do it. So we're getting really creative about hiring people right now. I can't even remember what the actual question was that you asked me. I'm sorry, that was a really long tangent. But we have a meeting at West Campus tomorrow with at the alternative high school campus with kids who are working more in trades than towards academic and school. We have had meetings at Brightwater. We have sent mailings to their alum, but I think we're all realizing that this is actually just going to be a much longer recovery than we thought. I think we thought vaccines accessibility was coming. We were going to get back open again, and we were going to start to, I think we're now realizing that hiring and supply chain issues and lots of industries are actually struggling to hire right now. We just got a message yesterday from our food company that the price of our beef has doubled since a year ago. And it's because not because of production, it's because they don't have enough truck drivers, because so many of them retired and decided to take their early pension during COVID instead of fool around with all this stuff that they're in the same boat we're in. So I think we're just now going to be coming up on some very interesting challenges in our industry that I don't have any of the answers to, but in true restaurant fashion, we're going to make it work. So
it's true restaurant fashion. That is for sure. And entrepreneurship at its finest. And, Allyson, as Hannah was talking, I was thinking about, when we first started hearing about these hiring shortages, not being able to, people not showing up to interviews, not being able to find people, where was everybody? I don't know that we took into account the priority shifts that people have really done, but that definitely is part of the equation. I think we had some other theories, but you're kind of frontline hiring on the HR, and you've been really helping a lot of our clients with everything from, job descriptions to employee handbooks and manuals, and navigating the days of COVID really, really heavily. So what are some of the things that you have seen change, and then what is it that you are seeing on the horizon from that standpoint?
Well, I think, exactly as I don't think I can say it any better than Hannah just did. I think she has put a very fine point on it. She talked about all sorts of things. The thing that resonated with me is that people are looking at this time as an opportunity to go do whatever, has been a dream or a passion or a whatever, and I think that's typical with something like this. It's not to highlight my age, but it reminds me of 9/11. That's the reason my husband and I moved from the DC area back to Fayetteville, which is his hometown. I think people take these catastrophic experiences like a 9/11, like this last year of COVID, to ask themselves, why am I doing what I do? So I think while I didn't predict it, didn't see it coming, probably didn't think about it because we were so busy in the other parts of the emergency, that this is, now that we can look back on it a little bit, to have been expected. I didn't expect it. I didn't think about it, but it's not a surprise, maybe is a better way to say it. So I think what Hannah talks about is being creative, going to Alps, looking in your non-traditional places. And I think what she talks about is the mentors, and those folks with the institutional knowledge are just mostly gone. So you have no choice but to fill from the bottom up. Which is a steep learning curve. You're talking about, like Hannah's talking about, high school kids who aren't going to go to college, which makes perfect sense, but that's a longer, slower learning curve. So, and I also agree that we're seeing it in every industry. The handful of clients that I have through ASB TDC are going through the exact same thing. I've got physicians' offices who are looking to fill a front desk role or a phone scheduler. And really my advice is to kind of think about and put yourself in the shoes of either the ideal candidate or what's going to have to be your ideal candidate. If that ideal candidate doesn't exist anymore, like where are they? Where are they hanging out online? What are they reading? Where, A, and B, with these job postings, what might appeal to them? Mm-hmm. So I think, traditionally my advice has been, think of your current or former person who's excelled in the position, think about the attributes they have, and then figure out where you can go find someone similar to them. And I think now you've got to just be even more creative. Like maybe those same attributes are still important. Hustle, hard work, showing up on time, for example, for that front desk position, that timeliness, the no bringing in your drama to work, whatever those attributes are that makes for success. And now I think we're having to find folks in totally different ways. I have had zero luck with the Facebook postings. Like, I don't even think anybody sees the posting, never mind responds to it. So I do think trying those traditional, moving beyond what's worked before.
Well, and I think,
Allyson, to take a tail off that, can I just mention just a story that just happened just this morning? And so we can't forget people looking to kind of downsize or simplify also. One of my friends who owns a restaurant up north, an executive from Emerson Processing, which is a big company, worldwide company, but it's located in my hometown, just had something happen over the last year, has not really completely recovered, but wanted to simplify his life. he just applied for a job at her restaurant. And she said he is going to be absolutely amazing because he's got the customer service and the people skills. He just wants to now just simplify his life. So, I know people are having dreams and kind of moving on with that, but you got to remember, there's a lot of people that have been emotionally affected that want to come to work for just happy places, good, solid jobs. The restaurants, with Sheila, it is just occurring. And I think we're going to see a lot of that too.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to, Allyson, you mentioned that we do represent a lot of industries. I'd love to kind of know what industries we have here. So if you are joining us, thank you for finding us, and just love to know, restaurant industry really we know is very frontline in being hit. We have other industries that are having some challenges as well, and we are going to dive a little bit into talking about, I think Hannah, you said it's like the buyer's or seller's market in real estate, right? It's really been a market for employers to really kind of cull, and everybody was there, everybody was lining up with their resumes, and now we're on the other side of it, needing to go and seek people and really sell your culture and your business to the people that want to be part of it, and in your case, Hannah, resell the entire industry as being something that somebody wants to be engaged in. So I'd love to hear from anybody who joined us about kind of your industry and why you're here, and if you have anything that you are observing or experiencing that resembles or is different from what you just heard from the panelists. Everybody's welcome to unmute, join in. It's a forum. We're here to be together. Can I pick on you, Emily?
Sure. I would say, yeah, I don't have too much extra to convey than the panelists before me, but we currently are trying to hire a lot of young high school age students. And so we see a lot of just lack of knowledge or lack of understanding of the job force. So we see that as part of our mission with the summer camp program is employing young people and teaching them how to have their first job, what an I-9 is, what a W-4 is, what does it mean to fill out your W-4, and when taxes are higher than you thought, did you fill out your withholdings correctly? Are you withholding the maximum? So just having to explain some of those things to them, which is a great opportunity. Something I've kind of noticed with the young staff is understanding the difference. They're trained a lot in and told a lot about self-care and valuing themselves and things like that, but sometimes that translates into I don't have to work hard, and if I'm working hard, then I'm being asked too much of it's too much, and I need to find another location. And so trying to understand like how to ask people to work hard but also valuing their self-care, because like, I mean, when you're with kids all day, I mean, it is hard work from 7:30 to 5:30. We give them breaks in the middle of the day to help with staffing, but like understanding that, yeah, even though it's hard, it doesn't mean that we're being an unfair employer. It means that it is a work and it is a job, and you can still enjoy it even when you're working hard. So that's something that I've kind of noticed is a little bit of a theme with some people is trying to say just because it's hard does not mean it's bad. Yeah, and then we've got like with lifeguards and stuff, a lot of students are not taking the opportunity to get their lifeguard certification because they don't know if they can get enough hours, and it's expensive to pay $300 out of pocket to maybe get a job, and your certification is good for 2 years, but you don't know how many hours you're going to get, all that kind of stuff. So those are some of the things that we're noticing, especially with the high school to college age population.
Fantastic. And I noticed that we do have somebody in the fleet manager position talking about starting to sell the industry in 7th graders. So we are talking a lot about children are our future, right? And talking to them sooner than later. Thanks, Emily. Anybody else want to share a little bit about what's going on in your industry and some of the things you're observing? Before we move on. Fantastic. Keaton, can I pick on you? I see you there.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm kind of thinking about this with a couple of different hats on as a commercial lender, thinking about what my clients are going through. I joined the call as sort of as a nonprofit board chair who's about to hire 3 staff positions for the first time. We like just set up, just signed our paperwork with the payroll company like yesterday. So that level of newness to hiring and HR. So, I'm being reminded of things like, oh yeah, counseling people on the W-4 withholdings. Thank you, Emily, for saying that. And then I appreciate the comment about, well, just the broader comments about this transformational moment for the workforce and how people are maybe gravitating towards culture and purpose. And I'm sure stability in some ways. So I serve on the Fayetteville School Board, and I know in some of our conversations around career and technical education, we've talked a lot about sort of the stigma of what's perceived as a non-college track of career and technical education. So, a diesel technician is certainly one of those jobs I think about as a high demand, high wage, right out of high school sort of industry. And I think that's the key issue for educators is how is it a both and where an apprenticeship or an internship is eligible for both college credit and workforce training, so that it doesn't feel like a sacrifice or a less than choice for the high school student or their parents.
Absolutely. Well, and Sheila, this makes me think a little bit about you, both you and Chris, and talking about cultures. And you come from a corporate background, and then you became an entrepreneur and started a company. And so I think that you have, you probably observed a lot of things bad ways to lead and cultures, but you also probably observed, some really, you were kind of like, okay, I'll take this and I'll take this and I'll take this, and I will, when I create my own company, I'm going to do this. And so in the hiring people is one thing, keeping good people is another thing. And, to Emily's point, Keaton's point, everybody's point, really, what is that kind of formula in adapting to some of these changes that we're seeing about prioritization, self-care, some of those things that people are finding important, keeping people through a pandemic kind of environment. You've mentioned the remote work care that you're taking with that. Are there some other things that you have done differently or you see needing to be done differently when it comes to keeping good people and helping them grow in any environment?
Yeah, that's a great question and can be a big challenge. Definitely as an entrepreneur, I'm working. There are no times that I shut down. It's just all day. Anytime there's sunlight, I feel like I'm working double the hours, which is great, right? Because the challenge is, how do I keep developing and growing the company and grow my employees, as well as engage with everybody on the team, subcontractors as well. So that's been a big challenge for me, spreading myself. I feel like sometimes I'm spread really thin, but I love the big thing for me, I think, as we talk about retaining talent, it's getting to know who we're hiring. Once they come in, really starting to connect. What are your desires? What do you like, right? What do you don't like? We use a personality and a career assessment tool once they're hired to really get into kind of deep dive into their career interests, their stress behavior, what they're interested in. And so I use that tool with all of the employees. And it really gives me a good snapshot of kind of their working styles. And so I would say when I assign the projects, really no one wants to come to work and do a bad job. They just don't. And so if that is happening, right, what is it clear what we expect of them? So really setting clear expectations and even taking that a step further and saying, okay, here is why this project is important. It may seem small to you, but let's talk about who it's impacting. You know, coming from the corporate world, from Tyson, you know, I can say, you know, I help implement computer systems, or, you know, it's a different perspective, seeing the glass half full. I help implement computer systems that put food on people's tables across the United States and internationally. That's a whole different way of looking at my role. And so that's what I help the employees with, the team with, to really understand why. So we're a remote team of 25 people across 11 states. And so trying to keep up with everybody and really make sure that my question to the team is, when you get out of the bed in the morning, are you still happy? And when that changes, do you still enjoy what you do? And when that changes, we need to talk about, right, what's different. And so that's a question I ask. I think keeping in contact with them, periodic check-ins with the team to see how things are going. I call them pulse checks. Let's just check the pulse and see how things are going, what's working, what's not working. And then ownership and trust. We have to have an environment of trust, and we each have to own what we're given, our assignments. And so those are some of the things that I have in place to retain the talent and really make sure people know that they are a part of a bigger solution, that it's not just their world, but they're impacting people across the United States and making their life better. So those are some of the things that I've seen that I've taken from corporate and kind of injected my personality in that.
Sounds like you're a student of Simon Sinek, Start With Why as well. That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, and so, you know, Hannah, you're in a fast-paced industry, and, you know, pausing and caring for people is something that you're known for. Caring for people in the big picture, your big why is huge. In a fast-paced industry where things are moving so quickly, and then so the challenge is so compounded by the pandemic. What kind of culture creation are you able to create or maintain that you feel like maybe it's not even happening now, but could be working in the future, has worked in the past, when it comes to keeping people and creating that family environment that you're known for?
Man, our culture is so different in hospitality. It's I mean, I think that there are so many different personal management styles depending on who owns the place and who owns the place. I mean, the manager should be executing that vision of the owner, in my mind. And I think that's interesting to see now. I mean, I'm looking at a lot of different types of restaurants. There's a lot of talk in our industry about, you know, lack of healthcare and wage inequities and living wages. And there's a lot of, you know, because what we do is so physical and so fast paced and so late night, there tends to be, I think it's gotten better since I started working in restaurants, which was a billion years ago. I was 14, so 30 years ago, I started working in restaurants, and I think it's gotten better. But I think there's always been sort of a toxicity to a relationship between the front of house and back of house, and it's based on money, and it's based on, I mean, there are just a lot of nuances in our industry that are so specific to what we do that I'm not sure they're really that interesting to anybody here, but I think a lot of them have been exposed. I think a lot of the you know, misogyny with male bosses and hosts that, you know, get I don't know, there's a lot going on in our industry. And I think that it's gotten better in the last 30 years. And I think that, you know, there are a lot of things being said about working in restaurants right now on the internet. I see things every day that are about, you know, of course, people would choose working for, you know, $300 a week of unemployment money instead of going back to an industry where you don't get a break for 10 hours. And, you know, there are a lot of things in our industry that I think have been exposed by COVID because we've had the time to stop and think about how different we are from other industries. And I think there are a lot of things that need to be fixed as a whole in our industry. I don't know how to do that, but I think that a lot of places are going to weed themselves out. A lot of people, when you pay somebody $2.15 an hour, but you own 3 homes in Mexico. And I think that there are a lot of places that are going to be weeded out because of the way that they've been run in the past. And I think it's going to be a really fragile rebuild for the rest of us. I mean, one of the things that we've always done is that we don't technically do a profit sharing with all of our employees, but when we have busy improvement quarters, that's when we take everybody out of town overnight for a celebration dinner and a thank you, where we get to let loose and maybe not be on our best hospitality behavior and on Dixon Street, but out of our normal community. And those perks are going to be hard for us as owners to do because we've borrowed a massive amount of money to see our businesses get through this. We're rebuilding financially at a much slower pace than we want to be. We're still running at 40% of our sales. And so, I mean, I think we're trying to figure out our personal styles that we've always not asked anybody to do anything in our businesses that we won't do. I mean, if the kitchen is going to clean out the grease trap, then Ben is going to do it too, or whatever that thing is. And so we try and work hand in hand as much as possible with our staff and lead by example. And I mean, that we can continue to do, but I mean, we're really going to have to restructure and think about how we perk our people and how we keep our people. I mean, we show them a massive amount of gratitude for the fact that they've hung in there this long. It's been a pretty bumpy year. And so we've been really verbal about the thank yous for that. But we're all a little tired. I mean, I have had moments where I have not been my best boss this year because it's been a lot of pressure. So, I mean, I've been also really quick to apologize a lot of times this year because it's a lot. I don't know where it's going to go from here. I mean, we do have new hires right now and we're training from ground up. And I mean, I think this is going to be a really different conversation, and even 3 months is going to be a very different conversation.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I love that you said that, pandemic has really exposed a lot of things in a lot of companies, things that we took for granted or things that we thought, we could slide under the rug, and culture being one of them is definitely there. I also loved hearing about that, and I've always looked at it as kind of a family environment. But just really the things I heard were, expressing that you care, expressing that you're grateful, expressing that, we're all in this together, we'll do what you're doing. This isn't like a top down kind of environment, especially when it's a very physical and fast paced environment that you have. And yeah, we want to dive a little bit into perks and kind of incentives and some of those other things that we've heard about, maybe from Allyson. And then I really want to touch on, since we're kind of in this place of culture, and I don't want to get away from the hiring side of things, because that's where we got to get people in the door before we can create that culture with them. But Keaton asked a really good question about, and really I feel like it's about trust, and you're talking or asking, Keaton, about what does it look like in kind of especially remote teams, building trust. Building trust is going to be something no matter what, and Hannah even touched on that a little bit. What can companies do to build trust, Chris? And then when you translate that into these expanded remote teams, when we're not seeing each other, we're all like living in our own heads saying like, did I hear that right? We can't go across the hall and be like, hey, can you clarify this? That kind of thing. What does that kind of look like? So what are your thoughts on that right now in this point in time?
Well, I'm going to have Allyson kind of jump in here with me too, because we've had so many conversations about this between us two. But Hannah answered a lot of the questions there with, it starts with you. And Keaton, that's why I was answering with you. I have been coaching more leaders in this last year than ever before, because they're really trying to become self-aware in what they do, how they act, leading as an example, how they communicate. And those are the people in the companies that I see thriving. We can talk all day long about what can the employees do, but it really starts with the leaders. And Allyson, chime in here, because again, we talked about this a million times.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting, Keaton's point in particular around the remote. I have a client right now who they're just seeing some internal issues because so many of the people that they have hired over the last year, all of the people they've hired over the last year, they've never met in person. So it is normally a workplace, and traditionally a workplace where people would work side by side. And they've brought in, I don't even know, I'm going to say like 25% of their employee base. They've never even met each other, nor have they met their bosses in person. So I think they're seeing the results of that, which is, yes, a lack of trust, communications issues, which I think go hand in hand with trust. And I think one of the ways they're going to have to probably resolve it is to figure out how to spend some time in person. Maybe it's not the whole team at once. Maybe, as people are feeling more comfortable and more vaccinated, is that a word? Yeah, I guess, to be more intentional about that, because I think so much is missed. I think it was Chris who said, you can't now just stick your head across the hall or next door or whatever and say, hey, rather than an email exchange or we're Zoom exhausted. I think having to be a lot more intentional, open and honest and pretty transparent communications, because I just don't think the solution is some sort of a Zoom team building. I think it's like the complete opposite of that, like not one more Zoom, if at all humanly possible. So
Sheila, you've got people across the country, across states where in person isn't always possible, and you really have switched to a very virtual environment. What are you doing in those virtual environments where maybe in person isn't as much of an option?
Yeah, so my team of interpreters, 10 interpreters, I've never met them. And they do awesome work, very engaged. And what we found is I have a team lead that interacts with them on a pretty much consistent basis, making sure they're clear on their project work. We include them in our monthly team meetings, even though they are remote. So they're invited to our team meetings. And I do celebrate everybody's birthday with a gift. And so they receive a gift with a card. That helps just to know that someone's thinking about them. Internally with my team that works on more of the project-based work, I've actually had to try a couple things, but one thing I found that really works because they've not worked with each other is I rotate them on projects. And so they work together on projects and they learn what they like, what they don't like. But through that, over the past year, they've really gotten close and working with each other, know what each other's strengths are. And so we couldn't get together. And so working on those projects is a way that we've been able to build the trust, learn about one another, and use the tool that we have, that personality assessment, to work through the conflict and have the conversations. The last thing I'll say is having an open door policy, addressing the conflict and the issues that within 24 to 48 hours if we can, so that we can get it, resolve it, talk about it, work our way through it, and have a clear understanding and keep moving forward. So those have been the big things that I've seen with the remote team.
Huge. And Chris and Allyson, I know you all talk about this a lot too, that constant communication and check-ins. And Chris, you do some of those assessments for people. What are you seeing are some of the benefits and just understanding people's communication styles and who they are as a person? And I think it speaks a little bit to, Emily's comment about like self-care, boundaries, all of those things. And a lot of that does play into conflict, disagreements, harboring those feelings is not healthy for anybody. And it creates, an environment that's really tense. So what are some of the things that you're seeing that have always worked or will really need to be implemented to work better, especially in both our in-person and our remote environments?
Well, first I want to kind of piggyback off what Sheila said, because conflict is good. We always kind of put a bad spin on disagreeing with somebody or having some kind of a conflict is bad. It's not. It's where so much is solved. It's where, especially with two people, if they have some kind of a disagreement and then they come to an understanding, they're going to be it's going to be more powerful. Their relationship's going to be even better than it was before. So when you get through that conflict is when you come out on the other end. With the trust factor, Keaton. I mean, conflict builds more trust than silence does. And that's crazy to say, but it's so true if it's handled the right way, like Sheila said. And one of the things of handling it the right way is understanding the individual and their behaviors. And I do a lot of assessments, and I don't base it on the personality, because our personality was really set in stone early, but the behaviors. And Sheila, going back to your assessments, understanding your people and knowing your people, how they communicate. You know, one quick story before I pass it back to you, Amy, but I've got a client that really thought he was a great leader. I mean, he thought he was one of the best leaders. He created this culture. He didn't live the culture. People didn't understand where he was coming from. He didn't understand why his culture wasn't thriving until he really did some self-awareness and did one of these assessments. And we really walked through the good, the bad, and the ugly with him. Did he realize that part of, not all, but part of the problem was coming from him, where you can talk all day long about your culture, but unless you live it, like Hannah said, be the example. You know, you were saying you guys will go out and clean in the kitchen, you know, before you ask anybody else to, but it goes back to understanding each other, their behavior, how they lead, you know, how they have conflict, the whole package. And it starts with the leader. It starts with the owner.
A lot of walking the talk. And Allyson, one of the things that you have been talking to people a lot about is that communication, that regular communication, from the beginning of like the job description. And I think we've all talked about this too, like what expectation are you setting at the very beginning, to the onboarding process, to the, hey, here's a little review a few weeks in, all of that. Like, what does that healthy process look like from, you know, kind of beginning to through the good communication standard?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I would just call it kind of that employment life cycle that really starts with ideally creating a job description, what it is you're looking for, and then taking that thing and turning it into a marketing document called the job posting. So where you are trying to highlight, yeah, what you're looking for, but why might someone actually want to join your organization and do this job versus the next one or the next one? So highlighting, you know, some of those parts of your culture and what you have to offer, I think is a place to communicate that. You know, Emily talked about, which resonated with me as the mom of a almost 17-year-old who's looking for a summer job, that the sort of pushback, I think I would characterize it, that you're hearing from your teenagers. Maybe those are first jobs, you know, but I think being realistic, I feel like, is so important for every single person who's trying to fill a job. If you have, like Hannah does, a very busy, very fast-paced, very physical environment, it is important to express to your job candidates that it is a very busy, very fast-paced, very physical job. If it is, hey, we're working with young kids who can be exhausting in the hot sun, running around in summer camp, trying to make sure kids are safe at the pool or whatever. I think I've worked with busy dental practices before where you've got patients coming in the front door, the phone's ringing off the hook, and it's nuts. And you've got to be honest about that. So I feel like almost the worst thing is that you may say it and the person on the receiving end might not hear it. So I think how many times you can repeat it, asking for them, hey, well, what have you heard? What stood out for you about this job? Because I feel like probably the worst case scenario, even worse than not finding someone, is hiring someone and about a week later them going, well, this isn't what I thought I signed up for. I feel like that's like really your worst case scenario, because you've wasted time, you've wasted money and effort, and you're all the way back at the drawing board. And then I think the other place that it's really important is something Sheila touched on at the very beginning of when she spoke up about your onboarding. I don't know about you guys, but I have had some really bad onboardings in my career. You know, where I one in particular where I was left with a stack of old HR manuals from old conferences while my boss was gone for like a week. And I'm like, well, why'd you have me start this week? Well, I'm not, you know, and immediately I thought, well, this has been a huge mistake. I never, ever should have taken this job. And it was not a great job, but it is almost impossible to recover from a really poor first and or second impression. So I think really being intentional and really highlighting not even the good and the bad, but the reality of what your workplace is like every step of the way, and then keeping that communication past onboarding on a regular basis. And regular can be anything, you know. Regular for some folks in some industries is, you know, a 2-minute stand up every single day or night before a shift. maybe that's way too frequently for other industries, and that's weekly, maybe it's monthly, whatever that right cadence is, to be having regular communication. And I think too, just one more thing on that expectation is to be clear about what's needed, but to also see if you can make that somewhat of a two-way street where it's in addition to what's expected, like what's needed for an agreement. I think so many of us, here's your expectation. Sometimes human nature is, I'm not going to do that. So to the extent humanly possible, to have that be a two-way street. Hey, if I'm going to expect you to work, I don't know, we'll use Emily's example with kids for 10 hours a day. Like what would you need in exchange for that for an agreement? Maybe it is more of a break than you anticipated. Maybe it's, I don't know, additional help or more counselors or whatever that may be. And then, it's a back and forth negotiation to see if that is something you can agree to. It's an agreement on both ends.
Mhm.
So those are my 300 thoughts on all that.
Well, I'm happy to remind everybody that we do one-on-one consulting with these two fine ladies. So if that's anything that you need and you're not already a client, please think about that. And I know we started a little bit late today, and so I definitely want to honor everybody's time. But I want to, since we do have a few more minutes, just want to make sure that if we have any questions for our panelists specifically or our consultants, that we or your ideas, your comments, your observations. This is a really important topic, and we'd love to know what you're experiencing and what's working for you. So if anybody wants to share that, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, I was just going to piggyback kind of what Hannah said. We're in the same industry, and these changes have been coming before COVID. We were already seeing reduced numbers of applicants, reduced qualifications of applicants before this started, and it just accelerated. So we kind of made, what I do is I run a small restaurant group in Bentonville. Some of you may know about some of our places. We have Trash Creamery and Tuscan Trotter and Butcher and Pint. So we have some local favorites, more or less. So we decided before this even started that we were going to do some things we've never done before, like offering health insurance to our employees, like offering paid vacations to our employees. And that was real easy to say when business was booming before COVID. But, without the support we've gotten from government help, we could have never survived it. But we've kept all those things in place and added other things on too. We've tried to really up our game as far as diversity training, so that but not just we understand that that's a corporate culture we want to embrace, but also that every employee understands this is part of it. If you come to work for us, that person next to you, they're maybe as different as they could be night and day from you, but you need to respect them and work with them. And because we can't afford to turn our backs on anybody who's a good employee, nor would we want to. But it's just kind of evolved to where, the employees will get on to us about it now, because they've embraced it so much, which is great. Something else that I've done, as my job is director of operations, so I don't actually work in the restaurants day to day, but this doesn't just apply to restaurants, any business. I've tried to take some of the pressure off my managers because the hiring process has been so stressful this year. So what I've done is I've kind of taken over all that scheduling, running through resumes, making the initial phone calls. They still do the interviews and the hiring, but that way they don't have to deal with the tremendous amount of no replies you get from people who apply to a job. It can be really discouraging, and make you not want to try and fill those jobs anymore because, gosh, I have to call 5 people to get one to respond, but you applied for this job, so it's crazy. Anyway, that's just some of the things that we've done up here. And I just can't emphasize that I recognize it's throughout every industry that we deal with. So somebody mentioned drivers. It's people working in factories. It's people picking plants in the field. It is just a really, really difficult environment to keep good employees right now. And honestly, I can only speak from the restaurant business because that's what I'm in. but something's got to give, and what's going to give is prices are going to go up a lot. To get a cheeseburger is going to cost you a lot more in a year or two, because all our costs are going up tremendously, and just something's got to happen, and it's not just for us, it's for everybody. And I'm just fearful that we're going to see pretty significant inflation in the next couple of years because of all these problems with employment.
Well, and I think it's like anything else that, you see that as Allyson said, we saw it, we didn't see it coming, but we saw it coming. You've already mentioned that again, Dave. It's like there were some things that were putting in place. Some of those things were happening, and it is, we think that it's this little thing that's only affecting us. And, as we close out here, I'm just going to say that that's exactly what this forum is about. This is about you all coming together, and we have suggested some solutions, but really the reality is we're all in this together, and that's what this is meant to be, is a conversation. So everybody knows that other people are dealing with it as well, that we can access each other, that we can talk to each other, that we can share these ideas, because entrepreneurship is lonely. Let's just put it right out there. It is very isolating, even if you do have a big team. And so it's lonely at the top. Is that what they say, Sheila? Now, remember that you chose this position. No, just kidding. And we all did. We all chose to be in this. So I want to remind everybody, first, I want to thank everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you to our panelists and our consultants, and thank you as a participant. We hope that you will join us the last Wednesday of each month at 12. In May, we're going to be talking about social media strategies, and we would love to hear more about the topics that you would like to hear from. I'll remind everybody that you can find a full listing of the workshops I've posted in the chat, and see our videos and our past workshops. Also find the new ones coming up at sbtdc.uark.edu. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We just really want you to stay in touch, and cannot thank you enough for being here. So thank you for your lunch hour. Thank you for your time, your expertise, your suggestions. And again, do stay in touch with us. So thank you all. Have a good afternoon, and we'll see you next month or before then.
Thanks for having us. Nice to see all your faces.
Thank you all. Yes, thank you for being on video.